So I almost completely forgot to do an intro for this next guest. His name is James Heugh, and he is fascinating. I was introduced to him by my last guest, Andrea Orris, and she just thought that we would be able to connect, that to share his story, which is incredible. And I really think you're going to enjoy it. This is a man who used to be an MMA fighter and transitioned into becoming an acrobat. You may have seen him on Ellen, America's Got Talent. His most recent thing is performing for Christina Aguilera's show in Vegas, as well as Usher's halftime show during the Super Bowl. So this man is incredible. He's got an insane body with insane skills. The episode's great. We talk a little bit about where he's been, what his plans are, how he got to where he is, because transitioning from MMA fighting to acrobatics is very different. um, and so, yeah, it's just an interesting conversation. And I'm glad that I now have a new friend who's going to try to hook me up with some acro jam groups here in Atlanta. All right. Well, enjoy. Well, hi. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm glad you were open to being on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to do it. Andrea said some great things about you, so I'm excited to be here.
She's awesome, and I'm so glad that she connected us. So I really don't know much about you, so I want to let you say whatever you want to say about who you are, where you came from, what is up with James.
All right. So I'm originally from Canada. I moved to the United States about 8.5 years ago. I basically came out here because I fell in love with this thing called acro, and I was relatively new at it. I learned what it was when I was like about 24. Fell in love with it, moved out to LA when I was about 26, just because I'm like, I'm just going to go full in on this dream. I'm going to see if I can, accomplish it. I found that there was this really beautiful place in Santa Monica called the Original Muscle Beach, which is basically where the fitness boom happened in the 30s. So it had been around for basically 90 years. I couldn't believe what I had found. I always had American citizenship because my dad is American, but never had the paperwork for it, basically. So the second I got home, I booked this passport appointment. The day my passport came in the mail, I threw a bunch of stuff into this old rusted up minivan, and I had no money, and I didn't expect it to make it, and I was gonna plan to live homeless in LA until I could figure it out. And I just kind of went, and it ended up making it all the way there, and then I just started my life as an acrobat, and has been chasing that dream ever since. So.
Okay, yeah. So first tell me how you even get, what made you want to become an acrobat? I mean, all of us who have gone to the circus have some sort of dreams once when they're there and they leave and they're like, Mom, I want to do this. But what got you into that?
So I was a competitive MMA fighter for 7 years. I was just about to turn professional. And then I suffered a really severe neck injury. And then basically couldn't get hit anymore. And since that's part of the sport, had to switch career paths. I was super depressed for years over it. 2 years, had a lot of very suicidal thoughts, had loss of purpose, loss of identity, everything. And so when I found acro, it was kind of the same in a way, because it's it's a lot easier to lift people when they're not resisting you and punching you in the face. You know what I mean? So there is this nice strength carryover for it. And it was the first time since fighting that I actually felt that spark of life again. And I'm maybe this is the next thing that I completely throw myself into 100%. And it kind of just checked all the boxes. And I fell deeply in love with it very, very quickly. And just kind of took it from there.
I love that. I mean, I don't know if Andrea told you anything about the podcast, but this is really all about people who've had to pivot in their life, or what they dreamed of took a turn, right? And it sounds exactly like what you went through. So basically, I lost my job back in May of 2023, and I became severely depressed. I had a severe identity crisis.
What was your job?
I didn't know. I was a TV producer.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah, and not that, you know, I'm not still, but I had like a full-time job. It was corporate America. I felt like, okay, I can retire there. I had this level of comfort. Everything was going to be fine. I could see all of the rest of my life kind of laid out before me. I could have kids, and like I saw other moms doing that within the department. So I felt really secure. And when that was taken from me, I was like, well, what do I do now? I felt like everything I had worked for was up until that point, and now it was taken from me. And I'm still a little bit in that stage of, well, what's next?
Yeah. Do you feel more excited? Do you feel more excited now that you're kind of like in an entrepreneurial space on your own, chasing your own thing? Or do you still miss the like, what is it, the security?
Obviously, the security is nice. I can't even picture buying a house again because I don't have steady income right now.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel more secure in the sense of I have that fulfillment again because I had lost it entirely, and I was so scared I was never going to get it back.
Yeah.
And what I loved specifically about that last job was that every project was different. So I had a variety of things that I was working on. It kept me entertained. And the biggest fear I had with working somewhere else was that I wouldn't get that sense of variety again. And now I'm kind of forcing myself into that with the podcast and just talking to such unique individuals, like hearing stories like yours, which I would probably never hear had I not been introduced to you. And so it's giving me that sense of whatever I was lacking, I'm getting it back. So I'm not exactly where you are, but we're working towards that.
I think anyone who is in the space of like finding the next new thing for themselves, especially when it's that scary spot, no matter how different it looks, we're all kind of in the same boat together.
Yeah.
It's really, it's something to admire, I find.
Well, she told me that she met you and you were basically living out of your van. So can you tell me how that even became a thing for you?
Yeah. Like she probably met me during like the minivan era. So when I like the Canadian minivan that was so rusted, I could like grab my key and like slide it through the metal anywhere on the car I wanted. Like if it got into an accident, it would just explode into dust, but then like one of the biggest transitions for me that happened was I met someone who I called my sugar family. And so I moved into this like $15 million house by myself for a year with no responsibilities other than just to like watch the horses. So if the horses, like I just had to check on them at nighttime. And if one of them weren't like dead on the ground, I would just be like, good. And then close the door. And it's just because I was like a good big brother because they had a daughter that was like overweight, wasn't very good in social situations, wasn't doing good in school. And then when I started working at this place called Aerial Warehouse, they had someone call looking for a kickboxing trainer. And since I fought for 7 years, they referred me. And I pulled into this like one of the richest neighborhoods in Brentwood, California, which is like the super bougie part of the city. And and like drove up like this hill for like it was like a 90-second drive up a vineyard covered hill up to this like huge mansion, and I ended up moving into it basically from being homeless. And one of the things I got there was like I got to experience what it's like to have all of these like really luxurious expensive things without really having to work for them. And something I realized is what like none of it actually added to my happiness in any way. So when I got out of that, I bought a new van and I like renovated it, and then I moved into that. So I went from a homeless to a mansion to a van again. So that's where I felt like I was the happiest. So, yeah.
Well, that was one thing that she talked about when we had our interview was that your fulfillment comes from a purpose outside of you, and it's not necessarily tied to a job, a place, or specifically money. It really is tied to something that brings you joy. And it sounds like as long as you're free, I feel like you feel that joy.
Totally. What is the one thing that you seem to find that consistently brings you that joy? Like what aspect of chasing the new thing do you feel the most excited about and the most joyful about?
That's a good question. When I made this intro video for the podcast, I came up with 3 things that I was looking for in the next thing. Number one was being able to tell stories. So I love interviewing people. I love having these conversations and, learning something that I otherwise probably wouldn't. So that was number one, which is what I'm getting with this, which is great.
Yeah.
Number two was being able to be remote. I don't thrive in an office setting. Like, I need to have my own space, my own time. If I want to work from a beach in Cabo, I need to be able to do that. So that was
Yeah.
something that
That's
even
not
when I was
a bad part of the job.
but like even when I was like going through the whole depression, being able to travel really gave me some perspective, right? It made me feel like my problems aren't that big. Like, why am I so sad? At least I still get to, see my family and travel and whatever, learn new things.
Mhm.
And I'm blanking on the third one right now. Oh, being able to be creative.
Yeah.
So obviously this kind of encompasses all of that. So I don't know. I'm really just taking a chance with this. I don't know if she told you anything, but like, I am not an on-camera person. I'm usually the one telling people what to do behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So this is a very new space for me, but we're trying new things in 2024.
We like that.
But I want to hear more about you with acro, because I feel like, yes, it's somewhat tied to the MMA stuff, but it's also very unique and different. So how did you get involved?
Totally.
Did you have friends that knew about it? Like, did you just, go to a meetup and fell in love?
So I was helping manage the like MMA gym that I used to compete out of, and I was still in that phase of being like horribly depressed and trying to like still stay involved with the sport that felt like it was actively torturing me every single day. That I was trying to stay involved with it still, and like I started like personal training people to kind of like like start making an income, and then I ended up building like this pretty like big personal training business for myself, but still was like horribly depressed. And then one day a circus came in that was looking for high ceilings and padded floors for like a practice spot, and so we leased out space to them. And then one day they're asking if like, hey, can you spot something? And I'm like, what's that mean? And then they're like, well, if the girl falls, like catch her. And I'm like, I think I could do that. And like she like nose dive towards the floor. I grabbed her and pulled her away from the floor before she hit the ground. And they're like, you're pretty good at this. And like, maybe you should come and like train with us. And at the time, I was coming from a very like hyper masculine sport and fighting. And now there is men in the room wearing pink flower tights. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. I'm sorry. And then like, and kind of like resisted it. And then slowly but surely, like they would be in there practicing at night and I would be like working really long days and would be there as well. And then I'd kind of like wait for all the guys to leave the gym. And then I would like close the curtains and lock the doors and practice with them. And then slowly like, it's like my dirty, dark little secret. And then it became something where it kind of felt like whatever effort I put into it, I got back. And there was like this very like focused mindset on technique and like being attentive towards like what the small subtleties of your body would do. Because in fighting, that was everything. Like your wrist being grabbed like this compared to this was the difference between like why you would get something. And as long as you tapped into those moments, you really started to understand it. And that's the same thing that happened with acro. But I think one thing that was rather hard at the beginning is because when you have like had this big moment in your life where you were very passionate about something and then something happens to it and it dies and you have to move it on to something else. I think one of the problems that I ran into was I was trying to like fuel the same fire with the same fuel that I had used for fighting, but it was all like burnt out at that point. Like if you're like, you can't light wood on fire twice. Like you can't have a fire with the same wood twice, right? Like it's going to burn out. It's going to completely go away. And it's up to you to find the new fuel to build the fire with. You might have a lot of like techniques that you've used in the past to build the fire. You might know how to keep it going, but you need to find something new that's invigorating in that moment to like really push you forward to the next step of like your passion. And I think there was just a lot of things that acro presented to me that fighting didn't. Like I've always wanted to see the world. one of the things with fighting is that you never got to leave, right? Like you were in the gym every single day and you didn't want to leave because if you left, you could have missed the opportunity and then you would have never been able to take it. Whereas like acro kind of seemed like it encouraged me to see a lot of the world because there was so much knowledge outside of just one place. And like more opportunity came and like it always depended on your network. So the only way that you could build a network is by traveling and everything. So there's a lot of things that really kind of allowed me to ignite a new passion. And then all of the hard work and the stuff that I learned how to like kind of just like put my head down and work with like what I learned from fighting really helped pay off in the acro career.
So what are your dreams then with acro? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
I want to continue to spread it to the entire world. One of the things I've been super grateful with is that I get to travel literally to anywhere in the world I want and meet a very enthusiastic community that wants to show me why like their city is the coolest city. And it's been like this like really, really beautiful thing to explore connections with humans that you don't even speak the same language and can't communicate any way other than through this like play form. And so I think if I could retire from this industry being like I significantly helped push this into like a worldwide thing, that will be my goal.
So when did you start this journey? How long ago was that?
It's been about 10 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how have you seen yourself grow from the very beginning to like, just finding that spark again to now?
I would still say that I'm a happy amateur out of all of it. I think because like the root, I guess like the root word of amateur is like for the love of it. And so like, because when you're doing something as an amateur, the only reason why you do it is because you like are fully in love with it. As you turn professional, you start making a lot of compromises and a lot of choices based off of money and security and a lot of these things. I still consider myself a happy amateur. I still identify a lot with the same spark and the same joy that I felt when I first started acro. And it's really nice to help like put that spark in other people, right? Because the first time you get them to do something that they feel absolutely terrified of, and then they bring their feet down to the floor after successfully doing it, you see that same like their eyes go wide and you're just like, oh, they're experiencing the moment right now. And I think,
yeah. I feel like that's definitely something that's a career where you see the immediate impact, right? I was having a conversation with my boyfriend where he likes to have that instant gratification of knowing that he's doing something and you can see the result immediately. And I feel like with acro, it's the same thing. Like if you're teaching someone how to do this move and they're scared to do it or try it or whatever, and then they get up, they stand up and they're doing it, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Have you tried it before?
Yeah, actually, it's so funny. I went to this it's a different high school where you do high school and college at the same time. So we didn't have any sports teams or anything, but we had different clubs and we had an acro club. And
really?
That's when I first discovered acro. It was really, cool. I loved it.
Cool. What kind of stuff did you do?
Oh man, I don't think I went to too many meetings, but I remember that the first one had to do with like standing on someone's thighs as they were kind of like holding from behind and I had to lean forward. It was a big trust exercise for sure.
Yeah, totally.
But after that, I was kind of really excited about it. So I tried doing aerial yoga and stuff, and I found this gym. Shout out to Stardust Fitness, but they really incorporated a lot of that stuff. And that's where I learned to do more with the acro yoga. Cool. Which I wish I could still do it now. I don't live there anymore. I used to live in Florida. Now I'm in Georgia. So I haven't found any place. So if you know of a place that I can try out here.
Where in Georgia?
I'm north of Atlanta.
Okay. So a really good way to find acro anywhere that you want is that you go to Facebook, you type in the city that you're looking for it in, and then acro behind it. So like, say you're going to go like Atlanta acro or something, or Atlanta acro yoga. If you can't find your city, search for like the next biggest city near you, and then use that to kind of be like, oh, does anyone know anyone in this spot? And then the community is very, very helpful with that kind of stuff.
Oh,
did you do gymnastics or anything? Because you know Andrea, so. Did you do gymnastics?
Well, I used to when I was like 7.
Okay.
I was really into all of that stuff back then, and now I just go to the gym and I do Pilates. That's it.
Yeah. Long as
But
you
what
love
are
it.
the different things within acro yoga, or not? I don't. Now I'm stuck on saying acro yoga.
Yeah.
But what are the different things that you can do? Because obviously there is acro yoga. Then there's the people that want to go to Cirque du Soleil. So what are the different? I don't want to say levels, but just aspects of acrobatics.
Like there's like totally there's people that want to make it their entire living and like perform at a really high level, which has a lot of like consistency and discipline and just like natural ability, because like not all bodies are made the same, right? Obviously, some people are just gonna have a little bit of an easier time getting into it, but for the most amount of people that are doing it, they're just doing it as enthusiasts, like weekend warriors type of thing. Like they're gonna go to a thing called a jam. A jam is just basically like this, usually no cost. It's usually outside in a park. Um, Everyone is just there just to practice whatever they want. There's not really any instruction. That's probably like the biggest level, and that's normally where like I think a lot of people will end up finding like community. They'll find friendships. They'll find a lot of like-minded people that they like to be around. They kind of get that rush of like feeling what it's like to like risk a lot and then receive the reward on the other side of it. Just like you probably felt when you did acro, you're like, oh, I thought I was gonna fall and die, and I didn't. And then there's like that big like hormone or like that big chemical rush in your brain that happens because of it.
Absolutely.
So I think people that do potentially hazardous or dangerous things together and come out the other side build a natural bond with each other, right? Like
Yeah, don't they say that people who've gone through some traumatic experience end up closer?
yeah, like trauma bonding, but like, you know, you're like
Yeah.
specifically choosing what type of trauma bond. Something that's not going to scar anyone unless if you fall on your head. But yeah. Cool.
I love that.
I could definitely help
I was
hook
gonna
you up
ask you
with a
something else.
community in Atlanta, so let me know. There's a big one there.
Yes, please, please. I honestly would love to, because when I moved here, I didn't have any friends. I still don't really have friends besides my boyfriend's family, but they're like an hour away. So I'm like working on making my community, but all of my friends from the gym are, and I hope that they don't hate me for saying this, but like they're all older with kids, you know,
Yeah.
like they're not coming to a concert last minute with me on a Saturday or to find an acro jam.
Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 29.
29.
I mean, wow, I'm 28.
Wow,
Fuck.
you've done a lot
Almost
for 29. You've done... That's awesome.
Yeah, I have lived a lot of life in 28 years, but
Yeah.
I was going to ask you something else. Hold on. About your social media. So, the way that Andres kind of presented me to you is that you're like an acro influencer on Instagram. So how has that been, like have you met other acro influencers? What is that like?
Like, I don't think I would ever call myself an influencer. I feel like there's so much like stigma behind it, where it's like, what are you, an influencer? I'm like, no. But I think one thing that I've been pretty blessed with is whenever I'm really good at bringing people together, and I try to do it in a way where everyone has a chance to kind of like represent their best selves at these events, and so it's kind of been like one of the coolest things in the world to kind of build up that presence. And then for some reason, like I do think that I've gotten a little bit more ahead just because of a number that appears beside my name on an app. But I've gotten to meet people all over the world that have been like, you know, like mysteries to like the entire community. And then I'll be like one of the only ones that get to practice with them. And then everyone will be like, what was it like type of thing? Like you just discovered like the next version of gold or something. And I'm like, let me tell you, because it was super intense and super interesting. Like, so like, I think if it's like almost like this portal to meeting very extreme / interesting people, it's one of the coolest things. Because like with fighting, it was a lot of the same, but it was under very, very different like environments. Because if you're in a room full of professional fighters, you can imagine what that energy feels like, especially professional fighters who are not close with each other. It's very intense and very rigid. Whereas like with acro, you tend to meet things and it's a lot more light and very like um, easy to like integrate into.
Yeah, I
But
think the
I
biggest
like,
thing that I'm
yeah.
seeing. No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, after you.
I was just gonna say that I feel specifically with social media, it makes it seem like someone who has a new idea or someone who wants to get into the acro space, right? Like they
Hmm.
think, well, what's the point? There's already so many other people out there. We're gonna remove the word influencer. There's so many
Yeah,
other people on Instagram with tons of followers. Like, why would I even start? Why would I bother? And I think the thing that I'm realizing too that I'm trying to get out of my own head is there's enough slices of the pie for everyone. Like
right,
you don't have to be worried that there's 1,000 other ASMR people or 1,000 other, I don't know, makeup artists doing their thing on social media. Like there's a space for everyone, and I think that's the biggest thing that anytime I talk to someone like you who has a big following, I kind of want that message to be sent across so that people don't get scared to just start. You never know
right.
where it'll take you.
Yeah, I think I talk about it with this like same topic with a lot of people where it's very easy to fall down like the comparison
Mm.
like train of thought with a lot of things where it's like they see somebody in that industry acting a certain way online, whether it's like someone who's really really loud and they're like, oh my god, guess what we're gonna do today, and like people are like, I can never see myself doing that. But like I like cooking is always one of the easiest ways to like talk about it online, because I feel like cooking tutorials on like social media are one of the most diverse things in the world. Like you have one dude that's punching his fridge every single time he makes something that he likes and he's screaming, and then there's other ones where there's not a single word said the entire time. It's just
Mm.
shots of somebody's hands moving, right? And I'm like, there's such a like with the amount of people that are on the internet, there are so many people who are looking for the exact style of content that only you could potentially give. It doesn't need to be like everyone else's. It just needs to be like your own. And if you put a lot of effort towards it and treat it like it's like a job and not just like a dying fad, you'd be surprised about the audience that will find you for your own unique style that potentially no one else there is capable of giving. And I think as long as you keep that mindset, I think it becomes a lot easier just to find your own voice and to find what makes it feel fulfilling to you rather than trying to copy something that feels like active forms of torture creating that content every day.
So, what's your unique style? What are you bringing to the table?
I don't know. It's hard to describe because I'm just being me at the end of the day. Um, I try to do things that look like accessible and creative because I think that the more you can inspire people to just try it uh, is a really nice place to be. And then on the other side, I like to practice my own vanity by posting things that I'm like, ooh, someone else try that, but you can't type of thing, just because it's like really fun to kind of like show how you're progressing and leveling up. Um, and then I like to post a lot of memes because I feel like sense of humor is one of the most relatable things to find, because you're going to find people that either identify with your sense of humor or very much do not. And I think that's another way to build an audience and craft your own style.
Yeah, amen to that, especially the humor part.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you are so interested in two very unique different sports, but they all kind of require another person in order for you to do it. It's not a solo
Yeah.
sport. Yes, you can train like in MMA, and yes, you can like build your own strength, but in acro, you need someone else really to kind of do what you want to do. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I think with anything, like acro is very much so like you definitely need somebody for it, but at the same time, the more you work on yourself, on your own, the more that you have to bring to a partnership. Um, like I think it goes with anything. It can be with a relationship, it can be with a job, it can be with a hobby, anything. A lot of people are basically waiting to be like, oh, well, when this opportunity comes up, I'll really kind of pour myself into it and I'll grow into like the position type of thing. Where more than likely you should be pouring yourself into things so that the opportunity can find you. Uh, you see it in acro a lot where a lot of people are like, well, I'm just going to wait until I find a partner and then I'll start practicing. And it's like, well, you're never going to find a partner because you don't really bring anything to the table type of thing. So I think even though it is a partner sport, I think the more that you can like work on stuff, like if you're like a flyer, you should be spending time on your hands. You should be developing your flexibility. You should be doing little things like that. And as a base, you should be getting stronger. You should be lifting weights. You should be finding ways to like build yourself into the better version of you so that the right opportunity finds you. But that being said, with like finding the right person to do stuff with, like I'll even say this, like I am not individually impressive. If anyone was ever like, can you show us something? I'm like, I literally cannot. I can't do anything. I can't flip. I can't handstand. I'm like, I can mimic what it would be like to hold somebody over my head. But see, like you just have to imagine something impressive is happening. But yeah, I definitely feel that more than anything, that no matter what field of your life you're in, you should be treating yourself as the biggest investment potential ever, or the biggest potential opportunity ever. So that when the right moment comes, you just got lucky because you were waiting in that spot every single day. And then eventually when the opportunity came, you were there, you know?
I love that. I think that's good too for people who they want to start something, but they feel like they can't. Like there's something that you can do to at least better yourself. So like you're saying, when that opportunity presents itself, you're prepared. Totally. I love that. I think a lot of people get too scared, or they keep thinking like, well, I'm not in the right place, or I don't have the money for this, or I can't get the right equipment, or blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, what can you do with what you have?
Right. Yeah. Like, I think one of the things, the best like examples of that is like, if you ever look up like African acro troops that are like, you know, in Uganda or Tanzania or any of these places, these like kids are throwing some of the craziest things you've ever seen, and like on dirt, and there's like a rock beside where they're doing like this. I'm like, you know, you can move the rock or something. And like, they're not doing it with pads. They're not doing it with chalk. They're not doing it with any type of special equipment, yet they're able to pull off these like really, really insane things. And I think just like, finding some type of ingenuity towards the process in itself is very fulfilling. To be like, well, you know, I didn't have any of this stuff, but look at what we came up with in spite of that. And I think that's something that actually does carve your style out, because like, you know, like you're doing a podcast from your house right now, right? You're not like renting out a studio for $10,000 a month and going, because that's what your favorite podcasters do. You're like creating this whole thing from the comfort of your home. And for a lot of people, they identify with that. And that's what finds your audience and finds what you want, like what you're actually looking for. And so I think ingenuity during the entire process of developing your own style is what actually attracts people to you.
I appreciate that. I think I was a little insecure about doing it from home, because this isn't even my house. I'm renting this place.
Yeah.
Like we just recently sold our home because I lost my job. So it's been a whole lot of change, and oh my God, do I really want to do it from this rental? What if we move to another rental and then we have a different background? And people are going to be like, well, why the hell are you somewhere new? So I do appreciate you saying that. Just, you know, starting somewhere.
Totally.
Is what it takes. I think it's also a good way, not necessarily for me specifically, but just in general, for the people that do things to better themselves before the perfect situation or scenario presents themselves, that you can really get a sense of if you do enjoy it, if it really does bring you joy. You know, you don't have to depend on someone else or the equipment or whatever you have to start with gives you that ability to test it out. Mm-hmm. See if it is giving you what you need from it, what you think it's going to give you.
Oh, sorry, I lost you for like a second there.
Oh,
right at the end.
I didn't say anything important.
Okay. I think I got the gist of it, though.
Well, I think the last thing I'll ask you is, how has your vision or idea of what success looks like to you changed over the years? So what did it look like when you were a fighter and now as an acrobat?
With fighting, the biggest way that you were rewarded for your hard work was winning fights. There was always something really special about having like a date with a stranger that you didn't know, that you probably never talked to, and then you were going to fight in front of 1,000 people that were watching and like hoping that something bad happened to you. And so like the biggest reward was not losing the fight. You know what I mean? Like, and not being embarrassed. With acro, I feel like as I've gotten like bigger in the industry, one of the things that I always kind of like heard growing up was like, well, your like purpose is like your happiness, right? Like if you should be counting your success by how happy you were each day and how many laughs you had and everything. And as I was getting more and more into this industry, I found that was completely like the wrong way for at least me to look at it. I thought that purpose felt more in line with like the bigger picture, where it was like building a community and trying to bring everyone to a certain level and finding different ways to kind of like express myself in that space. I found a lot of things that I wish I never found, right? Like I found a lot of problems, and I found a lot of like stress, and I found a lot of like very, very difficult times where my body felt broken and nothing felt like it was going right. And I wanted to give up a lot, but I think that in itself is the purpose. And I think the more that you focus on not like happiness, because happiness is so fleeting and it comes under so many different circumstances. I think laying down with myself at the end of the night and knowing that even if it didn't feel like anything was going right, that I was even inch by inch moving in the right direction. So my success in this isn't really feeling happiness towards things, but it's feeling as if I'm moving in the right direction, even if it feels very difficult at times. But yeah, so I think those are two very different emotions towards success in these two very different things.
No, but I think the latter is definitely the better one.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, how did you get through those tough times? You were saying that you had some challenging moments in all of it. What helped you get through it?
Basically the way I see everything right now is that I'm creating a lifetime highlight reel. When I die, I want to watch the best version of whatever I could have created flash before my eyes. And I think during the hardest times, I think one of the most fulfilling things will be to look back and go, I had every single opportunity to quit and to stop, but instead I really, really suffered and pushed through it and created something really magnificent for myself. And I think that's the biggest thing that I wanted. What I'm after right now is just pushing through any moment so I can look back on myself later and be proud of it.
Well, what brought you to that point? Because I know a lot of adults even that aren't as, what's the word, resilient as you.
Mm-hmm. I think that came from fighting. I think like I got into fighting because I was like viciously bullied from the time I was like 12 until like leaving high school at 17.
Oh my gosh.
One of the things that really, really helped was like, because I took like so many beatings and like things from people who I like kind of like, you know, in a way like liked and stuff in school, because like they're the popular kids. And one of the things with fighting is like when I first got to this one gym, I was like under this, like learning from this guy who was like, looking back as an adult, was a very horrible human being. Like the way he would treat people around him and like talk down to people and like go behind people's backs and like he would like say horrible things to kids, you know, like that had not like are, like innocent in the situation. And one of the things that he would always tell me is that I wasn't going to achieve very much, but then there's a bunch of other guys around me that he said were going to achieve a lot of things. And I would just basically make the point of every time that I was down, I would always be the first one back to my feet, even if I was like completely beaten to like an inch of like my body giving out on me. I'm always going to be the first one that gets back to my feet, and I'm going to be the first one that puts my hands back up again, because I'm going to go for another round, and there's going to be no way that you're ever going to beat me down hard enough that it's going to make me like quit. And I think with fighting that really kind of solidified that for me because I saw the benefit of getting up one more time. No matter how many times it is, it's just one more time back to your feet. And then when I got into acro, that determination really kind of brought itself through for me. Like, you can't make me quit. You can't make, like, I'm always going to be self-assured. I always have the voice inside my head that's telling me to get up and do it again. And I think that's just always been the biggest part. It's just like you're capable of getting up one more time, and leave it at that.
Wow. Well, I think that's a wonderful way to live and a wonderful way to look at life. Because we have no control over what's going to come our way, but we do have control over how we react to it and what we do with that.
Just like you right now. You're running a full operation out of your house now.
We're trying.
You're doing it.
Well, thank you so much, James. I really appreciate your time and for coming on and sharing your story. And if there's anything else that you want to add for the 3 listeners that we have.
Yeah, cool. If you're in the Middle East or Africa in the next 3 or 4 months, I'll be there. Meet up with me. This is the next adventure that's kicking off. So. No
way. Wait, what are you doing there?
So I've always my goal is to see as much of the world as possible. I kind of like look out into the world and see a very declining state of the world. So I almost feel like I am doing a little bit of a speed run right now to get to all of it before it changes.
Before it disappears.
Right, yeah. And even last year, I'm like, when things were happening with Taiwan, I'm like, ooh, I better get to Taiwan immediately. And so I did. And now I'm like, ooh, the Middle East is declining. I should make sure I get there right now. So I'm like, one of the things I think is really fun as a storyteller is to show people things that they wouldn't expect to see. And from my perspective, I've met a lot of very, very kind people from the Middle East, and I would like to show that perspective rather than the declining one that the news likes to show. So I'll be touring between about 7 different countries when I'm there this year. And then after that, my mom runs this village in Uganda somewhere that she kind of like.
What?
Yeah, it's a really, really, really crazy story how she kind of came into this position of a leader in this remote village in the middle of nowhere.
Wait, can I talk to your mom? Can I have her on the podcast?
Yeah, she'd be great. She's super enthusiastic and loves telling people about her story with it. So I'm going to go.
Yeah, I mean, there was a part of my life when I wanted to move to Africa and do a whole bunch of charity work over there.
Well, guess what? You have a mobile podcast that you can. So
I'm sorry, I cut you off. So what else are you doing in Africa? You're going to see your mom.
I'm just going to go see her, and then I'm going to try to tour as many countries as I can and find as many acro groups as I can in the place. And then...
Wow, I'm so jealous. I'm dying to go to Africa.
You should.
I've only been to Tunisia once, and that was on a cruise, so I didn't really get to see it.
That's north, right?
But yes, that's
right across from Spain.
North.
Yeah.
Next to I don't even want to say it. I'm going to sound like an idiot. I'm not going to say.
Algeria?
Yes, but I think there's a country in between Morocco and Tunisia. I could be wrong, but it's right up there, right at the top. But I have been to the Middle East. I've been to the UAE, Dubai, Oman.
Cool. What did you think about it?
I loved it. I think when I was there, it felt so different from any other place that I've been to. And I do travel a lot, maybe not as much as you, but I've been to a lot of places, and I thought, to me, the UAE was so fascinating. It's different, right, obviously, than the US.
What was fascinating to you about it? Well, what would you say is different between social interactions in the United States and social interactions in the UAE?
Ooh. I think people are more, I don't want to say rule followers, but it felt like there was a lot more respect in the UAE. Whereas here, people kind of beat to their own drum, and over there, it felt like there was a little bit more respect. And even though from my understanding, because I went with an ex-boyfriend who was from there, women don't really have a lot of rights. I don't know if that's changing now, if that's different. But back then, I remember his mom was trying to sell their apartment, and she couldn't because her husband had to sign the paper. Like, he had to do everything. She had no control over that.
Yeah.
But it still seemed like she had some sort of respect when she was out in public. It was just so
Totally.
different to see. Yeah.
Totally.
I probably won't use that in the podcast, but
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. It was like, whoever you met, it kind of felt like you met with this very standard level of respect that was, no matter what meeting you were in, the level of respect was always up here. Everyone started here, and then the course of your actions would determine if it would go lower. But yeah, it always kind of felt like you knew exactly where you stood with everyone that you met.
Yeah, I really did value that whole respect thing too, because it didn't feel like anyone was looking at you like you were below them or above them. It felt very equal.
Totally. And it helps that you're from the United States, because from what I understand, in the Middle East, it's not so much about your ethnicity or the color of your skin, but more about where you're from. Whereas like if you're from the United States, your social class is much higher compared to, from what I understand, like one of the, like, don't put this on the podcast, but one of the lower ones that people would tell me would be the Philippines, because apparently a lot of Filipino people go back and forth between UAE and in the Philippines, and like that would be one of the ones that wasn't high on the social class. But being an American, which is weird in the Middle East because you would think that it would work against you, was actually really high up. But yeah, I don't know. It's super interesting over there. I'm going to be going to like Iraq this year.
Oh shit!
I know. Yeah, I feel nervous.
No, well, I hear Iraq is beautiful. Same with Iran. If I could go to Iran and not, feel like I'm in danger, I would totally go.
Right. You don't want to catch like a stray missile right now. You know what I mean? Like, because like there's a lot of shit going on, and but I hear a lot of really, really good things about Iraq, especially northern Iraq, and that kind of seems like a very high interest point for me. Especially because, do you know what Göbekli Tepe is? I'm probably butchering the word, but it's in Turkey, and it's basically right on the border of where Iraq meets Turkey. And so I'm going to go to northern Iraq and then go up into Turkey, because that's where the oldest megalithic society has ever been discovered. So like people that built big things. Whereas like I think like before they found that city, people thought like the first like megalithic societies were about 6,000 years old, and then they found this thing and it was like 10,500 years old. So it kind of like reset the entire timeline of human beings on Earth. And I think there's something like,
I didn't know that was in Turkey. That's cool.
Yeah, it's in Turkey. And I think there's something that's super like fascinating about learning what had happened, where it went because of what happened, and to learn from histories of the past, whether it's go to these really beautiful places, or if you go to these really, really horrible places, like you go to like the killing fields in Cambodia or Auschwitz or Dachau, or these like really awful places. I think there's so much to learn about all of that kind of stuff, and the only way that you do it is by going to very uncomfortable places.
100%. And I'm also a firm believer that history will repeat itself, and we need to educate ourselves to so when something does happen, we know what to do differently.
Totally. Yeah.
Are you planning on going to Saudi Arabia? Because I hear that is also stunning.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about it. Because like going to Saudi Arabia just to go is like one of the things that I feel like lacks a little luster for me. We might be doing Arabs Got Talent in July, and that either shoots in Beirut or Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. And so like it would be really awesome to go to Saudi Arabia for that, because then you're kind of like there's a lot of opportunities that come to you because of it, but just to go seems a little aimless for me. So I'm waiting to see if something kind of falls into place. But like Saudi Arabia is huge. If you look at it on like a map, it's massive, and I think there's a lot to do there. And I think it's become a little bit more progressive in a way where, like, since under the new king, it's not so extreme. which is nice.
Mm. Well, that's what I hear about Iran also, is that they're trying, I don't know if they're doing it now because of everything going on, but they were
Yeah.
trying to push Iran as like a ski destination because of
Really?
how amazing their resorts were. Yeah. Yeah. I heard this a few years ago, so I don't know if the MO has
I didn't know you
shifted,
can ski
obviously.
in the Middle East.
Yes, yeah, that's what they were showing me. Like the most incredible places, mountains, ski towns, snowboarding. I
Wow.
mean,
Is that insane
I
that
don't
you
know.
like we don't know about these things until people are like, you can ski in Iran, and you're like, what?
Right? Yeah, like I would never even think it snows there, but that's so stupid to even say.
Yeah. It turns out that we don't know anything.
Yeah, right. We're just idiots.
Yeah. Ignorant. Ignorant's a good word. We just don't know.
Ignorant. Yes, not idiots. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, well that's cool. I'm gonna definitely follow you so that I can keep up with your travels. I
Cool.
wanna check them out.
Send me a message so it's easy to connect.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, I really do appreciate you being on again. So thank you. Thank you for taking
Cool.
the time.
I had a
And
blast.
sounds like you have so many plans on your calendar. I'm glad
Yeah.
you could squeeze me in.
I'm happy we did.